Welcome everyone to our next episode of the Power Half Hour. My name is Debbie Sanzo-Davis and I'm your host today. And we are so happy that you could join us. Thank you for coming to us every Thursday evening at 5 o'clock. And I'd like to introduce you to our co-hosts today. We've got Andrea Begent, Dorothy Holterman, Kimberly Petrosino, Lisa Jackson, and Lori Tidwell. And our very special guest today is Lindsey Smith. And Lindsey Smith is going to talk a little bit later on about food guilt. But I thought what would be nice is for us to start with our roundtable discussion and have all the co-hosts, including Lindsey, share what their food guilt is. Perhaps maybe they're the one that they held dearest to them and what they did to change it. So I'm going to start with Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Great. Go ahead and give us.
I had a lot of food guilt associated with a lot of different foods, but my nearest and dearest is definitely coffee. There's always so many articles for and against coffee. It's good for you, it's bad for you, it's good for you, it's bad for you. And ultimately I decided I love coffee. It makes me feel good. I want to keep drinking it. But what I did was, if I realized that if I'm going to be putting it into my body every single day, I want to at least make sure it's a good quality coffee, no artificial flavors, a brand that I trust, no added sugar, and a good quality creamer. And that was sort of my answer to the guilt that I felt over drinking coffee in the morning. So now I can have my coffee and feel good about it. And that's my one little advice, so I'm okay with it.
Well, that's good advice, and I think probably everybody in the audience could use those tips for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Lori, how about you? What's your food guilt pleasure, and how did you change it?
Well, I am not a big chocolate person, generally speaking, but once in a while, I just want a really, really good piece of chocolate cake, like a really rich piece of chocolate cake. So I actually found, and it's probably not the best solution, but it's a really good solution in the long run. But there's a bakery that we have here in Utah that does vegan and gluten-free options, and they have a vegan chocolate cake that is to die for. I mean, it's so good. So that's what I have decided. Once in a while, when I get a craving for that, that's what I go for, is a vegan option.
I love it. And, you know, we always keep dark chocolate in our house. That's like the go-to snack here. Andrea, how about you?
It's so funny you said that. So chocolate is my guilty pleasure.
Oh.
So, and Reese's peanut butter cups, when I was younger, I loved them. So now what I do is I take a small square of organic fair trade chocolate and I dunk it in or natural peanut butter on it, and I get my fix, my salty sweet together, and satisfies my craving. So quick and easy.
Yeah. A little bit, but I think we got the gist of where she was going with that one. Dorothy, how about you?
Well, guilty chocolate, but what I discovered was that it was also very much connected that my grandparents always gave me chocolate. It was their main treat. So I realized a lot of times when I really wanted chocolate, what I was really looking for was an emotional hit. And I found this like really goofy thing that if I just like gently touch my skin, I can actually like create like endorphins in my body, and that makes me be able to have like one piece of dark chocolate, not like the whole dark chocolate bar.
Sure. It kind of brings you back to
feeling.
That's nice. I love that. And how about you, Lisa? Hi.
Mine is the big potato chips that you get at Costco, and I really tell my husband, don't bring it home, because I will rip open the bag, and I cannot resist it. I could eat the whole bag. So salt, you know, when we are suffering with adrenal fatigue, we need salt. Salt is my craving. So in my book, I have a nacho cheese dip that's made with sunflower seeds, garlic, lemon, and aminos, which is very salty, and nutrition cheese and potato chips. And then I use jicama that I make into chips or vegetables, and And it's salty and satisfying.
Sounds great. Yeah, salt is definitely one of my food guilts. Lindsay, I imagine you have quite a few that you've overcome, but share one with us now. We're going to talk a lot more about that in a minute.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to be here tonight. It's fun being on the other side talking about food guilt rather than talking about how to write and publish a book, which is how I know all of you. So this is really fun for me. I would say right now my biggest food guilt is just I think it being summertime and wanting to experience all the things that summer has to offer, including, you know, ice cream and fries and nachos and things like that. And so for me, it's more so just remembering to love my food and, you know, eat it with love and not stress even when I'm eating those things. So that's kind of the big key in Food Guilt No More and what I'm still continuously working on.
Good. Well, I'm definitely excited to hear more about that. And now we are going to focus a little bit more on Lindsay. And so I'm going to give you a formal introduction so that you can kind of idea. Most of us on the panel here are very well aware, but some of you may not be. And Lindsay is the author of at least 5 books, and I think there's probably more that I don't even know about. And these are just 2 of them: Junk Foods and Junk Moods, and Food Guilt No More. And today we're going to be talking about Food Guilt No More. And I am going to, let's see, switch over the camera. Give me one sec, everyone. All right, there we go. Get Lindsay up there on the big screen. All right, so not only is Lindsay the author of several books, but as the instructor for the Nutrition's Launch Your Dream Book class, to date she has assisted, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of students, including myself and the entire panel that you see here, in creating and publishing their books. She is really pretty masterful at doing that, and she's really awesome at titles. So, and Lindsay is also known as the Food Mood Girl, and she's a nationally recognized health and wellness coach. She's been featured on The Lisa Oz Show, Mind Body Green, CBS News, and dozens of other broadcasts, print and online venues. She is the host of the Zest TV, which is a fairly new endeavor for her. It's a 30-minute bi-monthly lifestyle show, and I do believe it will be on YouTube fairly soon for those of you who want to try and find that. And so, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today. And as I said, we do want to talk a little bit more about food guilt, and I think it's something that few people can avoid when trying to make changes to their health. So can you share with our audience what happened in your life that brought you to begin to think about and have an understanding of food guilt?
Yeah, well, okay, let me see if I can. I feel like I need to look up to see you. Yeah, that's probably better, right? If I look up at my camera. Okay. I'm like, where am I looking here? Yeah, so I think for me personally, it actually started after I became a health coach. And I felt constantly judged for my choices, whether it was friends or family or other health coaches or health. And, you know, everyone has their own ideas and theories about food. And even though I was really healthy, I was struggling a lot with, well, what if I do want a chocolate brownie? And I just started associating it with, well, this is bad because I'm a health coach and I shouldn't want this anymore. And I think that's where I realized how big of an issue it was, that not only did it affect me when I was younger and I saw the patterns that affected me then, but I also realized that so many other, whether you're a health coach or whether, you know, you've never thought about health in your entire life, I think we've all suffered from food guilt. And so once I realized that my colleagues were feeling this way too, I decided to dive a little bit deeper and really try to tackle food guilt.
An integrative nutrition health coach. As I said, you've authored 2 books, and I know that you've toured the country speaking on this topic. Why?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last question? It kind of cut out.
Yeah, you know, I know that it's very important to you that you became a health coach, you learned a lot about it, and now you share it. Why is this a passion for you? Why do you share it with everyone?
I think for me, this is I can honestly say this is just who I've always been. It sounds kind of cliche, I guess, but since I was a kid, when I was 7, I held a carnival for my next door neighbor who was diagnosed with cancer, to raise money for her. And by the time I was in 4th grade, my poetry was featured in an anthology, and I started putting my poetry out there about my feelings as a kid. And by 9th grade, I was teaching stress management workshops to my peers. So I can honestly say that this is just who I've always been. And I think when I get passionate about topics, I really want to share it with other people.
That's really nice. Can you tell us, can you give us I know it's a big subject, it's hard to define quickly. Tell us what food guilt is. Help our audience to understand what that is.
Yeah, so food guilt is just the feeling of shame or guilt that you feel about your food choices. And it can be anything from a piece of kale that's not organic to a hot fudge sundae, and everything in between. I think that we put labels on food and we look at food as good or bad, and that's really what the essence of food guilt is.
And if our audience that's watching, they may have experienced this, could you give them just a few methods, maybe, just a few steps that they could follow that could help them kind of work through that so that it isn't an issue for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably in my books, both of them, Junk Foods and Junk Moods and Food Guilt No More, I call it's my recipe to health and happiness, but I changed it in Food Guilt No More. It's now the food mood paradigm. And really, it starts out with thinking good thoughts, eating real food, loving yourself, and then eating and cooking with love. And that's really the foundation for, I believe, a healthy life and also overcoming food guilt. Because if you are able to think positively, you feel better about yourself, you make healthy choices, you feel good about your food. If you start eating healthy, you start, thinking clearly, you start thinking more positive, and then you start loving yourself. It can go either way on the spectrum. And there's a little, you can probably see it in there, Debbie. There's like a little chart. It looks like it's on the introduction. And it looks like a recycling sign.
Okay, and I was just looking through your book because I did want you to mention a couple of other things in your book. Oh, yes, I do see that, yes. So maybe hold it up so our audience can see it too, Lindsay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And then just read what it says on the circle there. They can have a clear understanding.
Yeah, so it says, the circle basically says, think good thoughts, eat real food, love yourself, and eat with love, and then repeat as necessary. Because I think that it's like a recycling sign in that you have to do each of those things, and sometimes life happens and you get off track, but you know that you can always get back on at either one of those spots and repeat the circle as necessary.
Sounds good. And, I noticed in your book you have a lot of diagrams, ways that people can really find solutions to things, alternatives, I guess would be the word. Another section on craving kickers, which I think is really important too. Can you tell us a little bit about the alternatives and the kickers, the craving kickers?
Yeah, so I am a very visual person, and I just learn better visually, which is why there will always be photos or charts in my books. And the craving kicker chart is really a place for people that are experiencing food cravings, whether you are sweet, salty, creamy, crunchy, chocolates, caffeine, or if you crave bread and pasta. But you can kind of see what your craving is and then what your body may specifically need. And then there's ways to incorporate it. And then this book specifically has over, I think, I don't even know, over 60 or 70 recipes, I forget. And it also shows you recipes that you can eat to help counterbalance that craving. And a big key of this, though, is that if you are craving something very, obviously see what your body may really need, but sometimes it's okay for you to give into that craving in a sense. And one of the resources, or one of the things that I talk about, is really eating and appreciating and cultivating love into that experience. And so whether it's a piece of kale or whether it's a donut, go into the same experience with food with a sense of love and appreciation.
That is really important. And I was noticing under your craving kickers that just about everything that our co-host mentioned, well, everything is here, that they mentioned is on this list. And, and you even list what your body may really need. So for instance, under salty food, you have natural minerals, more water, chocolate, maybe a magnesium balance. So a lot of times when we are craving something, it's because our body is lacking something. So this is just really helpful information. And, Lindsey, if somebody took these charts and really went through all these recipes, because you do have a lot of recipes in here, and they really made an effort to not even make changes, but just to become more aware of what's going on with their bodies, what do you think the results could be for them? What do you think they could see on a day-to-day basis down the road?
I think that the biggest thing that you would see is just a shift in your own perception, a shift in your own mindset. I think that's you start to look at food as fuel and something that's nourishing and loving rather than the enemy. You start to understand what your body needs and you stop comparing yourself to other people. I think a lot of what this is more of the mindset shift rather than, oh, you'll lose 10 pounds. That could be a result. I don't know. I've never claimed any sort of weight loss with anything, but I think what you'll learn is a way to live rather than a way to just get by when it comes to nutrition.
I think that's great advice. And on that note, what I would like to do is, Andrea, if you could do me a favor, we have a few people that are inside the webinar jam watching, and so they are able to actually go to the chat room and ask questions. So if anybody watching would like to ask Lindsey a question, click over on the chat room. It is the blue on your left side, and go to the chat room and you can ask Lindsey anything that you'd like, and Andrea will let us know what anybody would like information on. And while we're waiting, why don't we go ahead and ask our co-hosts if they have any questions for Lindsey. I'm going to go ahead and bring everybody back into the room. So give me 1 sec.
And no questions off limits, so feel free to ask away.
Okay, so I brought everybody back into the room with us. And so who would like to ask Lindsey a question first? And then Andrea, just let me know. You can raise your hand, let me know if you have any questions from the outside.
Lindsey, I have a question for you. Do you think that by people releasing their food guilt on quote-unquote unhealthy or bad foods that they've viewed or grouped into those categories will lead them into making better and healthier food choices? Or is that clear?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I definitely think so. I think people, as human beings, we tend to want what we can't have, right? I mean, that's like you can't drink until you're 21, but everyone drinks underage. And then when you're 21, you're over it. It's our human nature and what we do. And so I think that when we tell ourselves, oh, I can't have this, you can't have this, and we beat that into ourselves, the more that we want it. And so if you allow yourself to have it, you'll probably be very unimpressed with your choice. You'll be like, that wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, or you'll appreciate it and enjoy it for what it was, but you'll end up making better decisions long term, and you won't binge later on. I find that a lot of people, if they say they can't have some, and they go home later and eat like 10 apples, almond butter, like a piece of dark chocolate, raisins, like they just eat all this stuff, and it's like you should have just ate the damn ice cream.
Or you end up eating the ice cream later after you've eaten like 10 other things prior.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Or that. Yep.
Good point. Any of the other co-hosts have a question? And Andrea, just jump in if any of our guests watching have a question. This is your chance, everyone, to ask Lindsey a non-book question. So this is not about publishing your book. This is about food guilt. So jump in and ask your question. Go ahead, co-host.
So I have two questions. Do you have recipes for those who don't want to eat a lot of salt that are still very satisfying and delicious? I guess the healthier version of the junk food in the recipes. I'm assuming that's what your recipes include.
Yes.
And I know you are our media guru. So where are you presenting your book next? Speaking? Tell us what your fall looks like.
Yeah. So I guess yes. To answer question one, yes. Most of my recipes are based off of cravings and foods that are quote unquote unhealthy, and I try to healthify them. And then as far as what's next for me, well, I do have very exciting news, but I'm not allowed to announce it until next week. So I know that's kind of like a bummer right now, but not to promo myself, but if you sign up for my newsletter, you will be the first to know because I'm sending that out next week. That's probably, honestly, that big announcement that I have is going to take up my entire fall. Other than that, I will be continuing speaking. I'm doing a bunch of colleges, and I have a few press trips as well. When I speak at colleges, I usually do a TV show or meet up with a magazine or something while I'm in town. So I'll be doing that. And one exciting thing that just happened is I was featured on a documentary about being hangry.
That's a Lindseyism. Go ahead and give us the definition.
Yeah, so you're so hungry that you become angry. And it's one of my favorite terms. And I've actually spent like the past 6 months researching hangry and doing all kinds of, I did some studies on it. I did all kinds of, because I just really wanted to dive deep into it. And so when the documentary presented itself, I was so excited because I just spent all this time researching hangry.
So how do we get your newsletter?
There you go.
Yeah, you can sign up just foodmoodgirl.com. If you sign up right on the website, you can get the craving picker chart that Debbi mentioned as well for free.
And tell us what your website is. It's foodmoodgirl.com, correct?
Foodmoodgirl. Yep, I'll type it in here.
Very good. And we do have a couple of more minutes. If anyone from our registered guests would like to ask Lindsey a question, we would love to have you jump in. And then, Lindsey, what we normally do at the very end is we give our audience one call to action, and that's just something that they can implement that is going to, help them move forward with making changes to their health. And that's really what we want to do. We just want to move forward. We don't want to change the world, and we can't do it overnight. We just small changes for sure. And we have a couple. Andrea, are there any questions before I move on? No, Andrea, you're still muted out. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
And you can.
We don't have any questions in the chat room as well.
Okay.
And you can ask a non-book question if they want as well.
True.
Or a non-food guilt question if anyone has anything.
And I was just going to mention that too. Lindsey has another book, which I do not have here. I have read it, but I read it online. And it's called Hear Me Roar. And I think she co-authored it with a friend of hers. And I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Lindsey, what's her name that you co-authored it with?
Jennifer Cassetta.
Jennifer Cassetta. And tell everybody just a little bit about what it's about, because I think it's such an important topic, and I do want to have you back on so that we can discuss it.
Yeah, so that one, when you start writing books, you just decide that, I'm going to write about everything and anything that I want to write about. But that one was more of a passion project for me. I think that it's about female empowerment, and the tagline is Hear Me Roar, How to Defend Your Mind, Body, and Heart Against People Who Suck. And it's really set for college women, helping them, navigate college, staying safe in school, on the streets, and things like that. And it stems from my personal experience of being sexually assaulted when I was a teenager. And so I wanted to kind of get that out into the world, and then also just share that with others. I donate all of my proceeds for that book to a local rape network that helps women and men that have been victims of sexual assault.
And I see Andrea's holding it up right there. Andrea, move it a little bit over so everybody can kind of, there you go.
Yeah.
So visually, it's nice to be able to see the covers. And for those of you that will be listening on podcast, I do apologize. You will not be able to see these book covers, but just go to Amazon Books and you can find them all quite easily. And Linda had a question for you, Lindsey, and she wanted to know, she said she's just finishing her second book finally, and she would like a little advice on publishing book number 2.
Okay, well, publishing book number 2 sometimes can be harder than book number 1 because you know a lot more, and sometimes that's terrifying. When you don't know a lot, that's terrifying, but when you do, it's also terrifying. I think probably figuring out what works for you for book number 1 and trying to incorporate that, maybe having ability if that works for you. And then I think telling your community that you're writing a book. I think for me, that's personally something that I've always done to help keep myself accountable. And then lastly, if I were you, I would decide how you want to publish that. So whether you want to continue to self-publish, whether you want to go with a small press, or whether you want to try to go for a bigger press. There's a lot of options when it comes to publishing, and I think once you start getting into your second or third book, I think it's good to see other options outside of that.
Sounds good. And you know, I do like to wrap up our YouTube video at exactly 5:30, but I do have a couple more questions, Lindsey, so if you could just hold on for after we have our call to action. I'm going to run through the group here so we can be sure and share that. Andrea, what's your call to action for everyone today?
My call to action would be to, when you have a craving, to drink a big cup of water, wait 10 minutes, and sometimes that may help you with your craving and you'll be perfectly fine. Or if you still have the craving, you can do a healthier solution like we've suggested, or just truly enjoy eating whatever it is that you're craving.
Thank you very much. Dorothy, what is your call to action for today?
Okay, so I ran out of green tea for a couple of weeks and didn't realize that I had stopped drinking it, and I just got a whole batch more 2 days ago, and I could not believe how my well-being shifted back into gear, and I didn't even know it. So my call to action is drink some green tea. It's very comforting. Sometimes, like when you have cravings, sometimes just having something warm is great, but when it's also an anti-inflammatory, it's really good. So that's my call to action. Add more green tea.
I love that. And I have 2 beverages I drink, water and green tea, Dorothy. That's a good one. Kimberly.
My call to action is simple swaps. If a food makes you feel guilty, don't think about deprivation. Don't try to eliminate it. Just swap it out with something a little bit healthier. White pasta for whole wheat pasta, cow's milk for dairy milk, etc.
Awesome. And how about you, Lisa?
So those who fail to plan to fail. And I hate that quote, but it's true. So plan ahead. And if you're going to a party or you're having a party, just find some healthy alternatives. So don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, and be prepared. You can avoid the temptation. And tell your husband not to bring the potato chips home.
How about you, Lori? What's your call to action?
Well, I would like to challenge everybody to get to bed before 11 o'clock, because that's when your circadian rhythms kick in and you get your second wind, and so you're up later, and when you're tired, you have more cravings because you're feeling like you need to pick me up, so you'll either go to sugar or you'll go to salt, and neither of those are great options. So if you're well rested and get really good sleep, you're going to feel better, won't have as many cravings. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Lindsey, what is your call to action for everyone?
I would say that go into every single relationship and encounter that you have with food with a sense of love and appreciation, whether it's a salad or whether it's a donut, just really think how that food got to you and appreciate every step of the journey and allow it to nourish you.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so no one go away that has joined on webinar. I just want to, it is 5:30. I can't believe it. We're like right to the minute this time, everyone. I want to thank everyone that is joining us either on YouTube or on Webinar Jam. We truly appreciate you being here with us. Next week, we will be back with Sue Brown and Simply Sugar. I had her book here a minute ago, but I will have to show it to you next week. So she will be our guest next week. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Lindsey, you are awesome, and we thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.